Hello ceramics student, today I'm going to show you how to make a lid on the potter's wheel. For our assignment you are required to make a lidded form. You are welcome to hand build your lids. You can make lids out of slabs really easily. You can make lids out of coils. But I wanted to show you two different ways that you can make a lid on the wheel, and then you could use the shape of these lids as an inspiration. Even if you choose to hand build, you could use these as kind of a design template. Now, we're looking at something that is not a lid, obviously, but lids need somewhere to go. They need something to sit on. There are lots of different ways that lids connect with a container, and I'm just going to show you one that's kind of the most common. So what we have here is just a little cylinder, it's a little jar, and we're going to use this as our resting place for the two kinds of lids that we make. But before we worry about the lids, we have to make somewhere for these lids to go. So, if you're going to wheel throw a lid, I'm assuming that you're also wheel throwing your container. You need to get centered clay, you need to pull up the wall, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make something called a lip. So what I've done is I've pulled up this wall and then I used my fingers to widen the rim just a little bit. I put a finger on the inside, my thumb on the outside, I made a little bridge with my other hand's finger, and I compressed that down just a little. For our demonstration's sake, I'm now going to visualize and then draw a line in the middle of this rim. And what we're going to do is we're going to sink down this inner ring, and it's going to become a shelf or a seat for our lid. So how this is done is you take your thumb. I like to put my right hand on the outside and I use my thumb. I connect or kind of brace my fingers together, and I just gently use kind of the tip of my thumb and I press straight down nice and slow. I hold steady and then I release. Now that got a little wider. I don't really need the lip to be quite so wide, so I can just cut off some of that excess that I don't need or want. And I can kind of think about this shape. Do I want to push this up a little more? Make this nice and flat. But that right there is going to be the seat where our lids go. I need to get this off of the wheel so that we can have a space to make our lids. So I'm going to take my wire tool, I'm going to cut underneath, get a little water on the board, and we're going to give it a little push onto that board, and we're going to leave this right here. The next thing we need to do is we need to make a measurement. This is our measuring tool that we use in ceramics. We're not too worried about, getting a ruler and remembering the number or anything like that. We just want to have something that can hold a distance for us. So these are called calipers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one caliper on the inside wall and one caliper directly across on the other inside wall. And I just want to get it as close as I can. And that tells me that the distance from here to here is how big I need to make my lid. So I'm going to carefully put this off to the side. I don't want to bump it. I mean, I can always remeasure, but I don't want to bump it because I want to make sure that I've got the right distance. And I'm going to show you how to do a flat lid and a dome lid. Those are the two kinds that we worry about. There are lots and lots of others that you could look up if you're getting interested in making lids. So to make a flat lid, we're going to take a little ball of clay here and clean my wheel just a little more. Okay, I'm going to give it a little pat, anchor it down. Now I like to show the flat lid first because it's easier. You don't have to have a perfect skill set of wheel throwing to make a flat lid on the wheel. We'll take our clay, now that it's attached, we're going to take our hand or take a fist, and we're going to start to apply a little pressure. And we're going to start to turn this clay into a bit of a pancake shape. And we're going to just try and be nice and steady. Now I'm not trying to flatten it out so much that it gets as thin as a board. We still want probably ½ an inch or so of clay. But I'm just going to push down. And I'm really only worried about making sure that the clay is wider than my calipers, which it looks like it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the distance from here to here, and it's probably good to do a quick recheck. Okay, right there. Ooh, these calipers are moving. Gotta tighten. Okay, we're gonna go from here to here. And now we're going to try and float the middle of this spinning little piece of clay right in between here. We're just gonna make our best guess and just gently let it rest on there and make a mark. Something like that. Gonna go back and double check. Check it again, that looks pretty good, okay? So now that I know that this little circle that I made is the right size, I can use my needle tool and cut straight down to the metal. I'm gonna cut underneath this side, peel off the excess. Now I've got a little circle that should be the right size. It doesn't look like a lid yet, but we should be pretty confident that's gonna fit. What it's missing is it's missing a handle or the knob. And this is why we left our clay a little bit thicker than a normal lid would be. So we're gonna use this clay to make the knob itself. What I like to do is I like to visualize, okay, top and bottom, let's make a line halfway. And I'm gonna take my thumb now, and I'm very carefully on the top half going to gently push in, slow and steady. And I'm gonna gently move this clay towards the middle. I'm kind of centering it. It's gonna get closer and closer. And as it gets closer, I'm just gonna gently push it together and it will start to blend in. And I can shape it a little bit using my fingers. Once I get it how I want it to look, okay, we're gonna retest with our calipers to make sure we got the right thickness again. Sometimes will get a little bit too wide. So it looks like I have to shave off just a tiny bit. And all that will pop off. And now I need to get this lid off the wheel head. Now for the demo, I'm gonna get it off quickly, but in class, you could let this sit for a little while to help it get a little bit stiffer so that it wasn't quite so soft. But I'll take my wire tool, go underneath, go once, go twice, it'll slip off and get it onto the edge, and you'd get it onto a board. For our demo's sake, we're just gonna pick it up and bring it over and see. Oh, look at that. That looks pretty good. For your lid, you would definitely wanna wait until it got leather hard. And then you could take, by hand, you could trim some of that off and get it into the correct shape that you were looking for. Now, our next lid is called a dome lid. So let's clean off this. You need a little bit bigger piece of clay to do a dome lid. All right, gotta get it centered. And what we're gonna do here is gonna be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. For a dome lid, you wanna shape your clay kind of into the shape of a doorknob, which I know sounds funny. But what you do with that is you're gonna pinch in with your two pinky fingers. So I'm gonna hold steady and just pinch a little bit tighter with my pinky fingers. And that's gonna make the top wider than the base, like so. And a dome lid is essentially just a small bowl that has a really big foot on the bottom. And so we actually think about it more like we're throwing a small bowl. And we need the rim of the bowl to be the same size as the lip on our container. So if I were making a bowl now, I would take my thumb, I would press down. I only need to go down an inch or so, depending upon how big of a dome you want to make. I'm going to pull it across slowly. Okay. And between my fingertips, I'm going to give it a little pull. So like with a bowl that we've seen in previous demos, we're going to squeeze, we're going to go diagonal, and then we're going to go straight up. So we're going to take our foot off the gas, we're going to go diagonal, now we're going to go straight up, hold, and release. We're going to go back down to the bottom, grab a little more, move it diagonal, and then go straight up. We'll take our calipers, we're going to retest. Okay? We're going to check that thickness. We're going to check this thickness here. It looks a little too wide. I'm going to bring it in a little bit. Hold. Okay? And that looks like that should match a little bit better. Might have got a tiny bit too narrow. Okay. So that right there should be good. Okay? Now the trick with the dome lid, what we're going to do is we're going to take our wire tool and we're going to cut lower than we think we need, because you have to imagine the knob or the handle is going to be inside of here. So we're going to take this, we're going to cut it off. Some of it's going to be trimmed, so we're not too worried about it being perfect down here. We're going to flip it upside down and we're going to let it get leather hard on top of a board. When it gets leather hard, then we're going to bring it back to the wheel. We're going to get it centered, and using our trimming tool, we're going to carve out our knob or our handle however we want it to look. We're going to let this dry till it gets leather hard, and then we'll show you what that looks like in just a second.
A few moments later.
All right, we've got our dome lid. It's leather hard now. I've got it centered on the wheel. I need to get it pinned down before we can do our trimming. I'm going to get my clay on here, get it pinned down nice and tight. You want to remember, even though when we were throwing this, we treated it like we were throwing a small bowl. We're not making a small bowl, we're making a dome lid, so we're not going to trim a traditional foot, we're going to trim a handle on here. We're looking at this right side up now at this point. Turn our wheel on, get our trimming tool. Now a lot of trimming a handle is kind of decorative choice as the artist, but you do want to remember kind of the main points here. We want to have an area that's easy to access with your fingers. You want to think about function. You want to think about how is this going to get pulled up off of the container that it's designed to sit on top of. And the trimming tool can help us with a lot of that. So I'm going to use both the round edge and the flat edge. This is pretty big still, so I'm going to take off a little excess. Your job in trimming is to mostly be very steady. Try and not move around too much. If you wobble, then you're going to leave behind wobbly clay surface. And now I'm going to trim in a little more and trim in up here. So I could leave it even as simple, something as simple as that would function as a lid. It needs to be smooth, but it's easy to grab. It would pull off just fine. I've given myself lots of excess clay because you can do decorative things. Once you've got your lid attached to the wheel, your design is your choice as the artist. So you can play with kind of creating steps or indents. You can use the trimming tool to create variations. Most students really like the idea of trimming their handle because they can make it look a lot more complicated than they would be able to if they were handling, or at least it's not going to take so long to hand carve something like this. It would take a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I'm gonna stop there. You could continue to play with things. Now what I would do if this were mine is I'd get it off the wheel. Now that I've carved in, it's a little bit softer in here, so I need to let it dry a little bit more. I could start smoothing, I could do a decorative pattern, but now I've got a dome lid that's going to sit nicely on top of my container.